Hello, this is Chuck Martin. I'm here live at the AI Summit London, and I'm happy to say I've got with me here Richard Self, Senior AI Lecturer at the University of Essex. Welcome.
Thank you. It's been great to be here.
So you've been on panels today, you've been really busy today, in dealing with a lot of the issue of AI, trust in AI. Tell me about that.
Well, the question of trust is actually becoming very, very important. And it doesn't really matter which of the AI technologies we're talking about, whether it's the predictive analytics or large language models and ChatGPT and Bard. We still have to be able to trust our data, and that's not necessarily a very easy thing to do. You know, with our mobile phones, we've got GPS, which theoretically is between 3 and 10 meters accuracy. But it isn't in most ordinary circumstances. It can be 100 kilometers wrong under certain circumstances. And so we got problems there, and that means that when we're using our data, analyzing it, whether for management information or for other things, advertising, location-based perhaps, you know, we've got to think about what are the consequences if we are using inaccurate data. Is it just doesn't matter, the customer doesn't care? You know, if you get an advert for maybe a Starbucks, which is 50 miles from where you are, it's just, there may be a bit of reputational irritation, but it's not serious. But there are other situations where you can get it badly wrong. And we've known now for at least 20 odd years that we have problems with all of our corporate data.
So when you're talking about trust, are you talking about the consumer trusting the technology?
I'm talking about a whole range of trust, whether we as the providers of the analysis, management information to management, can we trust the decisions that are going to be made on the management data? You know, we saw this with
How do you know?
Yeah, and as we learned with ERP systems, you get a brand new one, so everybody tells you, you've got to clean up your data. So you throw away 70% of your master data and think, great. 5 years later, you realize you've got to start data cleansing, just so that your management analysis and your actual operational work is going correctly. And we saw in the early 2000s, as big data started happening, it cost 80% of your time and resources was cleaning up the data because the master data wasn't very good. And we now have a situation that was mentioned back in 2012, that something like 80% of all of the data we have, not just master data, but everything, is of uncertain veracity. We just don't know what's right and what's wrong. And we don't therefore know necessarily the consequences if we're not careful.
So are there approaches to fix that?
Basically, fundamentally, in terms of business operational systems, constant awareness of the need for data cleansing checking. And that's a continuous exercise. But now we've got into the use of broader information on the internet, search engines, all sorts of different types of AI. We're beginning to have to think, or we should be thinking about, now, where's the data come from? What's its provenance? Can I trust it? You know, you think about children have learned to lie on the internet about their age, among other things. So how do we handle that? And that's an interesting question. And we don't know how to answer that one for children. Yeah, because if you have to have age-based identity or a credit card or something, well, borrow mother's or dad's or elder brother. And so we have to become much more aware of where our data comes from. And that was discussed in the fireside chat I had. We were talking all about provenance of data on the Booking.com environment to find out, where's it come from? What's it mean? And all sorts of technologies to try to understand where it came from, how recent is it still current, should we still be using it? So that we can kind of trust, as organizations, and you and I as consumers, that there may be fact there. Now this of course leads into the great debate about generative AI, and I'm keeping this here only the text side, because on the image side, it's kind of more intriguing, but on the text...
So companies seem like they're aware of bias and ethics, but it sounds like trust is not at the head of the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. If you talk, and talking to the discussions here is, how does trust fit into this whole thing about reliable or responsible AI and ethics? But ultimately, is it trustworthy? And how do we prove that it's trustworthy? And if I were to ask ChatGPT to give me your CV, I have absolutely no way of knowing which bits are correct. At least if I go into Google, I'll find that you're the director of whatever it is at Informa, and I'll find your homepage and etc. And I can find out the truth about you.
Right.
But if I were to ask ChatGPT or Bard, it makes stuff up, because that's its nature. I mean, you ask it about me, I've done it about 10 times now on Bard and ChatGPT, and they're all wrong. I found one fact that's correct.
So what are your students? Are you students using ChatGPT?
We don't really know. I think probably not. In terms of the question about assessment, it's actually quite easy, because both ChatGPT and Bard are incapable of providing proper Harvard standard citations in text, in line, and proper Harvard references in the reference list. And any that they do, most of them are fabricated. It's quite easy. You just take the URL, stuff it into whatever, and it comes up with a not there. Sometimes, I mean, Bard is a little bit better. It gets part of the reference right, maybe a couple of the names, but not all of the names. It might get the title right or wrong, or might get the year right or wrong.
But you don't know which names.
And why should it? The technology is not to answer questions. It's just to provide a sequence of tokens which follow on from the prompt set of tokens, and it does it one by one in an astoundingly compute complex or compute intensive fashion. For each token, apparently, it takes about the number of computations as there are elements in the language model, 175 billion, which is kind of a bit expensive. Even if they only charge you a few pence, or you get 1,000 tokens per penny, but that's, no.
So a year from now, and you have to be dealing with this because you're teaching students and have planning curriculum for ahead. A year from now, for AI, what will we be talking about?
That's going to be interesting. It really depends on how the world of regulation really gets its act together, I think. And to give the governments over the world their credit due, they have got on engaged with this topic quite remarkably fast. Less than 6 months, probably only really the last 2 months that they've actually been kind of responding to the amazing hype about AGI and the extinction. The stuff that, well, it's not going to happen, not in that sense yet, because we haven't involved the right technologies, the right science in the LLMs to be able to get any of this fact. We haven't got symbolic logic, we haven't got semantic networks, we haven't got et cetera, et cetera. So all it is this stochastic parrot. And why would you worry about it, other than the fact that it ingests itself, and very shortly, if we're not careful, we won't know which bits of the internet to trust even. And that's going to be a problem. We're not going to know very easily, unless stuff is properly labeled, which why should it be in a sense. We won't know who's created the stuff. We won't know who's manipulating who, because it's so believable. It's unbelievably believable. It's beautiful language. Whether it's in English or Bengali, it produces excellent responses. They're just fabrications. And this is going to be a really serious problem, I think, is the problem of trust in everything we find. We soon won't even be able to believe things like Wikipedia, if we believe that.
I look forward to that conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chuck. It's been great to be down here at this amazing event each year.
Always great having you.
Good. Thank you very much.